morning, everyone. There we go. It's on now. I'm Donna Snyder with the Plan Giving Roundtable, and we are very pleased this morning to have Carol and Carolyn presenting to us, but we're especially pleased that Tanner Friedman Strategic Communications, represented by Matt Friedman, is sponsoring this. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and first of all, actually, let's thank Tanner Friedman. Now I'm turning it over to Matt.
Thank you. It's been a great privilege to work with the Leave a Legacy campaign and the Plan Giving Roundtable over the last dozen years or so. And Philanthropy 101 is an appropriate topic for me in this session because the first campaign I ever handled communications for was at Wayne State University. And the first end of a successful campaign I handled communications for was at the law school at Wayne State. When they built the new auditorium. I hope everybody still calls it the new auditorium, otherwise I'm going to feel like it was a really long time ago. So I'm happy to be here to introduce our speakers for this morning. The spoiler is they're both alumni of Wayne State, but I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Carol Hill is a senior major gift officer at Wayne Law. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering from Michigan State University and an MBA from Wayne State. After completing a $16 million capital campaign for Elam Christian Services a year ahead of schedule, Carol served as Director of Development overseeing marketing, PR, communications, volunteer engagement, and fundraising for several startup elementary schools in Chicago and Philadelphia. A third-generation Detroiter, Carol returned to the area last year so her son Jeremiah, who lives with Down syndrome, could continue his special education past age 21. Carol is very excited to combine all of her experiences to build capacity for the next generation of lawyers, advocates, and leaders at Wayne Law. Also with us this morning is Carolyn Noble. Carolyn Noble is a lawyer and also a major gift officer who fundraises for Wayne Law. There she also serves as speaking engagement moderator, event planner, and marketing director, depending on what the donors need. She received her law degree from Wayne, a master's degree in clinical psychology from Madonna University, and a bachelor's degree majoring in psychology from Beloit College, which is in Wisconsin, I am with that. Carolyn's other interests include financial planning, politics, psychology, she'd be great to have as a neighbor, real estate, animal welfare, human rights, and reading good biographies. And she and her husband, Evan, recently had a daughter in February named Brooke, and it looks like you're getting sleep, at least last night.
One night.
Congratulations. So please welcome Carol and Carolyn, and we're going to start with Carol.
Great, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, everyone. We were hoping that someone would show up to this presentation. Carolyn and I originally had developed this presentation for a law communications class. So a professor asked us to present about philanthropy to the law students, and she had them prepare an ask to give us so that they could practice the art of asking for partnership and asking for money, which they would probably have to do along the time in their lives. Most of the law students were already involved in nonprofit, were already volunteering and giving their time and talent to other nonprofits, so it was easy for them to talk about the ask. And so we were very proud to present that. And didn't really realize that a number of you all would be interested in such a basic track. So how many of you are new to philanthropy as a profession? Excellent. Are there any board members in the house who are new board members to a nonprofit? Yeah, one. Very good. And so we're going to go ahead and begin by giving you the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about what philanthropy is. If any of you have not heard of Giving USA, it is a nonprofit that analyzes the giving across the nation, and you'll get some interesting perspective on who in America gives. There's a science of fundraising, and because I have a background in engineering, I'm going to talk about the mechanics of getting to a gift conversation. Carolyn's going to go over some basics of planned giving, and then we're going to ask for questions. This would be more fun if it's an interactive session, so as questions come up, just raise your hand and just kind of chime in, because it's a lot more fun. So what is philanthropy? Raise your hand if you've ever donated anything to anyone. So we have a room full of philanthropists here. Philanthropy, and I think the keynote speaker talked about its philo from loving, and anthropos, which is Greek for mankind. So it literally means love of people. So anyone can be a philanthropist. And fundraising is basically inviting others to join us in accomplishing our mission, right? So, here's some notable philanthropists. Mike and Marion Illich, of the founders of Little Caesars Pizza, gave Wayne State its biggest gift ever. We'd like to also note they weren't alumni of Wayne State. Neither one of them actually went to college, but they felt that the business school was something that they could support and believe in. And so the $40 million was given to Wayne State, the new business school. If you haven't seen it, it's beautiful on Woodward Avenue next to Little Caesars Arena. Putting the Mike Illich School of Business on the school increased the MBA enrollment by 65% this past year. So it was definitely a gift that was treasured by and revered by the people in the community. Sarah Blakely, you want to talk a little bit about her?
Sure. I like to bring a woman philanthropist in there, especially a billionaire. But she's done the Giving Pledge, which was started by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. It's to give half their wealth to charities and to pledge that they will do that. There's 168 billionaires now, maybe even more at this point, who have given the pledge. But she created Spanx, one of the great products that maybe some of us women use. So I think she's a great philanthropist.
Excellent. I wanted to bring up a couple of more kind of out of the ordinary philanthropists. Joshua Williams, he's a preteen. He raised $200,000 to end hunger in Miami. And then Osceola McCarthy, she got a lot of press. She was a washerwoman, and she was able to give 50% of her savings from washing people's clothes, $150,000, to endow scholarships at the University of Southern Mississippi. So these are just some interesting kind of examples of philanthropists, and you all are all interesting examples of philanthropists. Giving USA, so it's a nonprofit. They publish this every year. How many of you have heard of Giving USA? All right, so this is, you can go to their website. They do this every single year, and every single year it kind of comes up with the same analysis. So out of the $410 billion that was given to charities in 2017, pretty much 80% of it, if you include the individuals, 70%, and the bequest, which were about 9%, about 79% of all money given to charities comes from individuals. I know a lot of people, when they find out I'm in fundraising, they're like, oh, you must write a lot of grants and talk to a lot of corporations. It's like, that happens, but no. I talk to individuals that are interested in supporting our mission. And so corporations make up only 5% of that pie, which is pretty small. But you have to realize that corporations are in business to make money. Nonprofits are in business to impact people. So corporations give to nonprofits usually out of their marketing budgets. So it's a good neighbor type of proposition for a corporation to give money. And then the foundations, that is a little misleading because a lot of people give to foundations so that they can give through donor advised funds. So a lot of the foundations are also established by individuals, and family foundations give just to give through those vehicles. So really individuals are the key to major gifts in America. All right. So here's the impressions of a fundraiser. One of my colleagues sent me this. I thought it was pretty funny. So our friends think we are on the golf course all day, just like whining and dining rich people. Our bosses think we're sleeping on the wheel. Our families think that we cater to sheiks and the rich people all day. Our parents think we go around begging. Our donors think we're there to just yank money out of their pockets. But what we actually do is we're on a mission from God to transform lives through philanthropy. So it's really quite an honorable profession. The science of fundraising then begins like this. There's occasional gifts, annual gifts, and where Carolyn and I live, and most of you probably in this room, are major and planned gifts at the top of the pyramid. Occasional gifts can be things like crowdfunding, and things where you're doing a 5K and you get some money from people that you know occasionally. Annual gifts are more of a commitment. It's something where people are giving on a regular basis each and every single year. Then we have major gifts. And at Wayne State, a major gift is considered a gift of $25,000 or more, but they get up to 5 years to pay that pledge. So it's an average of $5,000 or more a year to establish a named fund at Wayne State. Then we have planned gifts, and those gifts, I've usually never seen 7 or 8 figure gifts come in without both a major gift and a planned gift component, but it can happen. So that's kind of where we live in terms of philanthropy. Gifts happen at the intersection of inclination, capacity, and affinity. So just because someone's wealthy doesn't mean they're philanthropic. Just because they're philanthropic doesn't mean they like your organization. So what you need to do is find the people who have capacity, who have inclination towards yours, and who are philanthropic. And so that's where that intersection. And then as we go into kind of the science of a major gift fundraising cycle, the first thing to identify is whether a person qualifies. So I have a caseload of about 100 alumni. And when I was fundraising for startup schools, there were no alumni base. So you just have to go out there and find people who believe in what you do, right? And so identification is the process of qualifying someone for a major gift. So I go out and visit someone, and I talk about, what their experience was at Wayne Law. So if it was not a good experience, they might not be qualified for a major gift, or might not have any intent on giving a major gift. But usually if they accept a visit from a major gift officer, they're interested in doing something, right? So I call and email and get the visit with someone, and the first visit's all about what was your experience, where did you grow up, how do you, what types of charities do you currently support, have you considered putting Wayne State in your estate plans? And I ask a series of questions, and it's really about listing how many children do you have, how many grandchildren do you have, do you support the grandchildren, are you putting together 529s for them, kind of where are you in your philanthropy? And so from that first conversation, at the end of it, I will say, so, Terry, most alum choose to give back in one of 4 ways. Faculty support, meaning that we can hire and recruit and retain the best and the brightest. Student support, which goes inside and outside the classroom. Program support, such as our clinics that serve the underserved in Detroit, or capital support. So Terry, out of those 4 areas, faculty, student, program, capital, do any of those resonate with you? And so then they say, yes. I was on scholarship, maybe I would like to support, I'm interested in supporting students, or I think faculty is the way to change the game, or I don't know, give me samples of all of those. And so that means that I can move them from qualification to cultivation. And so now it's about figuring out what, how much, and when they want to give. And so the next conversation then, I'll send them some information, I'll come back and visit in a couple, 3 months, and I'll say, so I sent you some information, did any of those resonate with you? And so we move toward that continuum till eventually I've figured out what they want to support and how much they want to support. So then we had the dean and I went down to Texas in March, and I had visited a venture capital guy who has a Wayne Law degree. He went to night school, he worked for Arthur Andersen during the day, and if it hadn't been for Wayne State's night program, he wouldn't have been able to get his JD, and he's very grateful about that. And he's highly successful, because when you're a venture capital guy, you kind of manufacture money for a living. And so the second visit, when I took the dean down, we basically, he told me on a first visit that faculty support is what he was interested in doing. And so the second visit, I was able to solicit a gift for a professorship. And we were hoping to get $5 million, but he decided, since it was his very first gift to the university, that he would give $750,000. So, bit of a disappointment, but definitely a significant gift that will help us change the game for the next generation. So then after you get the gift agreement signed and the pledge payment, then the next thing to do is find out how they want the gift stewarded. So one of the things that this venture capital guy did was took us into his office and showed us what Michigan State had given him when he had established a professorship there. So we're like, I guess we gotta come up with a little plaque like that to give him. So different people want different things. He's a very humble guy, did not want his name on this named scholarship. So we had to come up with a name of someone else. Each donor is gonna be different in terms of what they expect, what they want. And that's kind of what is exciting about being a major gift officer. We become kind of this matchmaker. We get involved in whatever they want to get involved in. We become a concierge to them. And when I used to runs small development shops, I used to have a joke about, what do major gift officers do all day? They just do one thing, right? But it gets a little complicated in terms, some people want to come back to the university and speak. Some people want to bring their high school students to the university. So we get involved in tours, we get involved in setting up speakers, we get involved in just, one of my alum sits on the board of a charter school and was wondering why their charter school graduates weren't doing well at Wayne State. So I got involved in the Academic Success Center and inviting the students down to talk to the people at Wayne State. So every day is really different, and we really are donor-centered matchmakers, and that's what we do for a living. So then after stewardship, after our venture capital guy finishes his $750,000 pledge in 5 years, then we will start talking to him about the next professorship that he might want to invest in, because we know that his capacity is much larger than the 750. So it just wash, rinse, and repeat. That's basically, and we become this, like I said, concierge to our major donors over many, many years. And the longer we stay with them, the more fruitful the relationship becomes. And now I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn, who's going to talk about planned giving. Any questions that anyone has? All right.
All right. Well, I think my mic's on. Can everyone hear me pretty well? Well, planned giving is just another way to make a major gift. We're all going to die. That's the truth. What I liked about the first speaker is that, it's really about relationships. It's finding what matters to them, what their interests are. Planned giving, no one wants to really talk about, but sometimes it comes up. And it's something that everyone should be aware of to bring out in the most thoughtful way, because it is a topic a lot of people don't like to talk about. So I'm just going to do like a very basic understanding of planned giving. This is probably something you already know, but leaving money or assets to charity is called a planned gift. A bequest is similar, though. I mean, it's leaving personal property or financial assets like stock, bonds, or cash to an organization. As you can see, they sound very similar. So they're interchangeable. And so some donors like to give real estate as well. That's called a devise. I know at Wayne State we sometimes get offered real estate as a way to make a gift. Sometimes we can't accept real estate, depending on what it is. One time a donor wanted to give me a timeshare in Florida. There's no way we could, maintain that or pay for it or anything, or even sell it. So we had to gratefully decline the gift. So there's all types of gifts. Yeah, did you have a question?
Before you get deep into it, how does this major gift thing tie into planned giving? In other words, if you have a relationship with somebody, aren't you dealing with that as well? Or are you handing it off to somebody? Do you understand what I'm asking?
That's a good question, and I guess I didn't go into that right away, but with every person you meet as a major gift officer, you do have a planned gift conversation with them. Maybe not right away, but if they give a major gift of cash, usually you want to ask them for a planned gift at some point, but you got to really it depends on the person. If it's right away or if it's a conversation to wait maybe a year down the line with, because depends on their age, depends on whether they've been stewarded appropriately. You don't want to ask for a planned gift if they've never really come to campus and gotten emotionally attached to your campus again. So you really got to feel it out, I feel like. That's my approach. Everyone's approach is different, though. I was given some good advice when I first started in this business that you really got to use your own personality and be authentic, because people can tell when you're being a fake person. So you got to feel out each person, in my opinion, and see what is appropriate.
Yes, I was just gonna say, along those same lines, if you have a giving society, we just started a new legacy giving society, and we're inviting all our consecutive donors to learn about that. And if somebody, is it true that if somebody commits to giving some sort of a plan, gives your agency, they're also more likely to then become a major donor, give a major gift, so it works both ways.
Oh, yeah, I could see that, where they gave a planned gift.
So now they're more committed and
Yeah,
they're
they're
more likely to step up.
Yeah, so that's a good point. She said that if someone made a planned gift, they were more likely to give a cash gift down the line if you steward them well and you talk to them continuously. So,
But to answer your question,
Yeah. Would you all repeat the questions, because either that or we're gonna have to run out with the microphone because we are taping.
okay, okay.
no problem. To answer your question, whether we do a handoff to our planned giving office, it depends. So we're all versed in the basics of planned giving, so that we can talk to our donors about the options that they have available. But if it gets kind of complicated, I will call in one of the planned giving officers to join me in the visit if we're talking details that are kind of over my head. Or inviting their financial advisor in the planned giving office as well.
And she had a question, but I can't repeat it because I'm not sure what it
I was just making the comment that
Or comment.
once people commit to a planned gift, they're also more
Here,
likely to
oh wait,
then.
hold on, let's put it on the mic. We're trying.
Really? I'm just making the comment that if you create an opportunity for your regular givers and to investigate and learn about planned giving, and they make a commitment to giving a planned gift to your agency, they're also then more likely to make a major gift because they've now made that commitment to your agency, so it kind of goes both ways.
All right. So, the next question I had, does anyone know the difference between a will and trust? Without looking up here, does anyone have an idea or could answer that? Oh wait, let's put it on the mic. Do we get the mic over?
I've been studying this issue since February,
Oh.
for me, so
Yeah.
I'm an expert at this point.
Oh, nice.
A trust, if you set up a trust, they will own basically most of your assets, if you do it right. And a will can work in conjunction with a trust, but a trust is the owner of the assets, most of them, and a will kind of is the overall, here's where everything is, here's where the stuff that's not in the trust is gonna go. And if you don't have either, then you're intestate.
Yep, you got it. All right, you want a Twix or a Snickers? All right, nice job. So, I wanted just to tell you what probate is. I looked up the definition because I was like, what is the definition of probate? Probate in Michigan is a court-supervised legal process that may be required after someone dies. Probate gives a surviving family member authority to gather a deceased person's assets, pay taxes and debts, and eventually transfer assets to people who inherit them. But nowadays, we like to avoid probate because it's a long process. So the point of you telling that, or me telling you that, a lot of well-off people have trusts to avoid probate. It's a more sophisticated way of dealing with assets. Trust is an agreement by which a person appoints someone to carry out specific or general services of financial management, which could last years or decades. Using a trust helps avoid probate court. So just to get an idea of how money is coming in, it's good to know those differences. A will is a legal document transferring wealth to beneficiaries. It also can have who gets children or who's the executor of the estate to give out those assets. But a trust can, we've heard of trusts lasting years, trust fund child, getting money through years and years and years. It can really last as much time as the trust executor wants it. A will usually is not that long. And so it's good to know those two things. But what you're saying was people usually have a will and a trust, because a will have specific things about children, but you'd still need a trust for the asset distribution. So what they usually have is a pour-over will, in which the will, when people make a revocable living trust to avoid probate, it's common for them to also make what's called a pour-over will, where all the assets they don't have in the trust are explained in the will that they will go in the trust. So, yeah, there you go.
How many people have actually set up their estate plans or have a will? Excellent.
That's good.
So we're speaking to the choir.
Yeah.
I just did mine. And the reason why I set up a trust, my son has special needs. And so if he gets more than 2,000 in assets in his name, he gets disqualified from Social Security benefits and Medicaid benefits. So I've set up a special needs trust, so all of my money goes into the trust. And then his half-brother and my niece take care of making sure he's cared for. And then the interesting question about it was, so what happens after Jeremiah's lifetime? I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't thinking about that. So I ended up doing some percentages to the charities that have cared for him over his lifetime. So that was an interesting process. So now I know a lot more about estate planning because I did mine, yay! So
that's really good.
So get yours done so that you can talk to other people about how they can set theirs up as well.
That's the smart thing to do. Plan giving, percentage of giving, it's good to know that, just so you're aware. Like Carol said, $410 billion was given to charities in 2017. We don't know 2018 just yet, but out of all that, bequests increased by 2.3% to $35.70 billion. So that's a lot of money. 9% of all donations, although it sounds like not a lot percentage-wise, the people who didn't die might have bequests that we don't know about. It's just everyone who passed away that year was 9% of all the money given. So it's kind of interesting in that way. Everyone has the ability to give a planned gift, and what people don't, or what people like about it is it's not giving your money now, it's giving your money when you don't need it. So, all right, so this is an overview of the different plan giving vehicles. I'm going to go over the different vehicles first, and then reasons donors should document their planned gift, because that's one of the hardest things we deal with is people actually agreeing to say, yes, I have a planned gift for Wayne Law, I will sign something for you, and here you go. And then the last is how to steward a planned gift once you receive it. So these are some of the types of planned giving vehicles. I don't have a list of every vehicle because I'm still learning, to be honest with you. When I first started this industry about 3 years ago, I had not heard of anything but trusts and wills. So it's something you kind of continuously learn about. It's a fascinating thing. What I value the most about this work, though, is the relationships. So if I don't know something, a donor is willing to explain a vehicle to me. So it's a fun thing to do. And so I wanted to ask all of you, could anyone define any of these other than trust and wills, which we went over, for me in front of everyone? Would anyone like to take a guess? Or
I can tell you at number 2,
Okay.
to give to a charity. Number 2, to give to a charity through an IRA, bank account, or life insurance policy. Not sure about the bank account, but the other 2, you just simply name the charity
Got it.
as a beneficiary of that
yeah.
item.
So it's a simple method.
Instead of your kids,
Yeah,
you give it to the charity.
yeah, you can even have more than one, but we'll get into that in a
Right.
second. But, do you want a Snickers? Okay. Anyone else?
I'm going to go back to number 2, because we just learned recently, we have some IRAs personally,
Yeah.
and as we're working on our estate, we're finding out that our kids, if they inherit those IRAs, are going to have to pay taxes.
Oh, yeah.
If we make our charity of choice the beneficiary, they don't have to pay taxes. So that is something I think a lot of the folks that we work with are probably in a position like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
In addition, the IRAs, the qualified charitable distribution, when you get to be age 70 and a half, you have to take down the money from your IRA, and you have to pay taxes on it unless you give it to charity directly. Yes.
And that's because the IRS wants their money. You know, you've been putting that away tax-free for so long, they want you to start taking that money out. So let's keep going with first Charitable Remainder Trust. Charitable Remainder Trust is something I learned at Wayne Law for the first time. It's usually set up by a wealth management or professional or attorney. And I like to give examples because it kind of helps me wrap around my mind around something. So I had a retired vice president of a large company with his wife who owned a store. They were giving a charitable remainder trust to a college already for his undergrad. So what it is you have a chunk of money and you basically get a distribution out of that money every year. It's every year until you pass away. Once you pass away, your charity of choices, can be more than one, gets that money. So it's a way to also have money go in there tax-free. You don't have to pay for the appreciation of the assets that you pour into this trust when you first put it in. So a lot of sophisticated, well-off donors put these funds into it. And so a lot of times when you approach someone, they may already have one, because a lot of well-off people tend to know about this sophisticated method. And so, for instance, this individual, he already gave his undergrad, Albion, $25,000 out of his remainder trust, which will go to Albion once he dies. So I didn't really have to do a lot of convincing, well, maybe a couple visits, but of him to name Wayne Law as also another beneficiary, because he has to put that money somewhere. He has to give it to some charity. So he decided after the second visit to give it to $50,000 to Wayne Law and a scholarship. So that was really appreciated. We know that he has about $1.5 million in there probably. So there's a possibility of more, but the first step is to thank you to that first gift. Yeah. So that was one example. Do you have any questions about this? Because it's a little more complicated, I would say, than the other ways of doing a pen gift.
I have just a quick one.
Mhm.
So in your example, he had 1.5 million in the trust.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
He had 1.5 million in the trust,
Mhm.
and it was all going to Albion at first?
No, only
was just-
$25,000.
So then he had this leftover just sitting there waiting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we don't know where it's going. Some people are very quiet about what charities they're donating to, or they don't want to explain every detail of their finances. So we're still in a conversation right now about a bigger gift, yeah, of that.
My question is we're talking about, how do you get all this information? I mean, you just have this conversation and they say, here are my financials, or,
Oh, no.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm asking, like, how
No,
do
that's a
you
good
start that?
question.
I mean, obviously, I
Yeah.
know how to start the conversation, but how do you
Yeah.
build that trust to get them to start to tell you, well, I have 1.5 million?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I had to learn through trial and error, but it's really about getting to know someone one-on-one and asking them about their children, about what they value, what their undergrad undergraduate means to them, what Wayne Law or your organization means to them, but really kind of being their friend. It's really a friend business. I feel like you're trying to get to know someone on a deep level, kind of like the first speaker said. It really resonated with me because I open up myself with the people I meet. I tell them about my life. So then when you get to a conversation about money, it's just like another topic. It's just another part of them in their whole, everyone has different aspects of what they care about, and money is just one of them. And eventually, we get to that conversation, but sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if that's a good answer, but Carol might do it differently. I think everyone does it a little differently.
No, the relationship building is the key. The listening is the key to what we do as major gift officers. We have an alum who's also an adjunct professor. I met with her, and she said she was interested in giving a gift, but nobody had asked her. I was like, why would you tell me that? So then, she sits on the board of a girls mentoring group, and so she asked if I could arrange a tour of the campus for the group. So I arranged the tour for the campus. She got invited to attend graduation. She ends up attending graduation, talking to the dean, and then she mentions to the dean, oh, I've included Wayne Law in my estate plans. And so then, of course, he told me, and I followed up with her, engaged donors give. So if they're engaged in your organization, and if they trust your relationship you've built with them through a meeting or 2 or 3, if they see that you're genuine, then they're more apt to share with you about what they have done for you or what they've done for other charities.
And if I could just add to that, when they share, you might be making an ask for a major gift, and they may then share with you, well, maybe not, I might not give you assets currently, but I might do it through my charitable remainder trust. And you can go, oh, well, you have a charitable remainder trust. Tell me more. So a lot of times that's, when you're making the ask, that's when you will discover what types of methods, vehicles that folks have already got in place or thinking about or whatever.
So they'll know that they're bringing their financials in a later meeting? Is that what you're saying? Or do we need to ask them?
I guess when you're talking about 1.5 million, to me, it means there's a lot of planning that goes in ahead of that to have them bring that information with them, or is this something that it's personal? So I'm just trying to figure out how do you get to that point where they're presenting you that information in writing or in.
So mostly it's not in writing, right? Mostly they're telling you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm assuming that you asked for a gift.
Yeah, I can tell you how this all occurred. The first meeting, I met this couple in Florida. I just came to their house and basically was getting to know them and their interests. I asked him a lot of questions about his background, what he cares about now. I also met his wife, and we chatted for quite some time about her business experience, what she cares about. And so I was there about an hour just getting to know them. And then so I had a second visit 6 months later up north at their other house. And, I came to their house because they're a little older, and I usually meet people out for lunch, but for them, it was convenient for me to go see them. So I was there for a bit, just talking about education, the state of university funding. The man that I was trying to solicit mentioned that he thinks private schools need funding a lot more than public schools. He thought public schools had funding and that we didn't need it, basically. And so I had to explain that, state funding is down. It's not even there were pre-recession levels, we're not at the same level even now. We're currently taking in less money. But it was just a casual conversation. It's no pressure. It's not like a sale. It's just talking about what he cares about. And he knows why I'm there. So we're just kind of, reminiscing about Wayne Law and why it means so much to him, how he got his career started. And so I always say, would you consider making a gift to Wayne Law in some way? And usually they have an idea. They've been thinking about it through our conversations. So he just mentioned how Albion, a private school, he thought needed it more, and he was giving them a gift. So I said, well, that's when the whole conversation came up about public funding. At the end of me explaining all that, he said, well, I'll think about it. Send me some information. I think I'm going to do it because we have some money in our charitable remainder trust, and I got to put it somewhere. So it's a very casual conversational process. So I know it's anxiety provoking where it's going to go, where the conversation's going to go, but that's the exciting part. That's what I love. You don't know where it's going to go, so you're kind of in awe, trying to see what people care about and where they want to go with it.
And we provide a real service. I remember speaking when I was at University of Delaware. This was my first major gift there, and timing was everything. So I actually brought the plan giving officer down with me to talk to this guy because he was 83 or 85. So it's kind of like, well, talking about a planned gift is kind of probably what he needs to be talking about. So we go down there, and he was a real estate developer and had just sold a property that he didn't expect to get this money, and it was November. And he had $100,000 that he was getting ready to have to pay a lot of taxes on. And we helped him with that problem. And so he did a charitable gift annuity. Because he's 83, gets a pretty good annuity off of that $100,000. He gets to claim the whole thing for his taxes. He only pays taxes on the annuity portion that he gets on an annual basis. And then after his lifetime, the remainder of that charitable gift goes to University of Delaware. So we're actually helping them solve problems with what to do with all this stock, with all this capital that is either going to be taken by the government in taxes, or it's going to be diverted to a good cause and tax exempt. So we're actually kind of advisors, consultants. We help them solve problems with the big bucket loads of money that they may have in their possession, right? And a lot of people do. I mean,
There's a question.
oh, you have a question? All right.
Carol, you mentioned that before you got into the major gift officer at a university position, that you worked at smaller development departments where you were juggling a lot of different tasks. So I'm like that, and I think other people in the room are like that also. Do you have any advice for us about how to balance this with everything else?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's, I would suggest that you kind of do on a small level what I still do today. So especially when I travel, I block out days that I'm going to visit alumni out of town months in advance. So I do my whole calendar for the fiscal year, and I mark out when I'm going to, what days I'm going to dedicate. So I would suggest maybe every Tuesday or every Thursday, you block out on your calendar, this is my donor visit day. so that when you're calling people, you can say, all right, I'm gonna be in your area on this day or that day, and block it out in your calendar way in advance, so that it becomes a schedule, right? And you work backwards from the schedule. So in 2 weeks, you have a day blocked off on your calendar to visit donors, and you don't have any donor visits set up. That gives you kind of an urgent reason to get some donor visits set up. The best donors to visit are those that you have. So people who, and there are some wealth screening tools that are free for nonprofits that you can get, but really they're only as good as the public data that people have released about themselves, right? So we have 10 minutes. So I'm gonna let her finish. Did that help?
So I'll just keep going. We have quite a bit to go through. Just a beneficiary of an IRA, bank account, or life insurance policy. You can name a charity directly on a beneficiary form. I don't know if you have a Fidelity account or another type of account, but you can put beneficiary and you can include your children, but also the percentages. So you can add a charity. So a lot of you are shaking your heads that you know about that. Bank accounts, you can put a charity on a bank account. So when someone passes, it will go to the charity. But a lot of people want to give money directly to their children or individuals, so not everyone likes that method. Life insurance policy, we have some of those at Wayne Law, where someone pays the premium and Wayne Law is the beneficiary. They keep paying the premium. The problem is when the person stops paying the premium, we won't get the insurance money because it's no longer valid. So it's not the greatest avenue, so I would not recommend that to people. But a lot of people like that. They like that, doing that things. But as this shows, IRA beneficiaries, 57% go to the spouse. This is the average, how much is given to each individual or type of people. Charities, 10%, grandchildren, and then children, the remaining portion. But the greatest thing about an IRA going to a charity is that you don't have to pay the taxes. They go directly to the charity. They don't pay the appreciation or anything like that, and the charity doesn't pay anything. So it's a great method. Charitable gift annuity. Now this was something I've never heard of until I started working at Wayne Law. It's where the donors make the initial gift and get a tax deduction the year the gift is made. They get a lifetime payout every year of a tax-free amount. Sometimes the small portion is taxed, but that's too specific. We won't go into that. Once the donor dies, all the money goes to the organization that's left. I'll give you a really quick example of a newly retired couple. They worked for the Detroit City and Detroit Police Department. They wanted to give $25,000 towards a charitable gift annuity, so they asked me about it. For the breakdown of how much would go to the charity versus how much they would get, you look at their age and how long they are expected to live. So for this gift, it was a 6.2% payout rate. So it would 6.2% would be paid out of the $25,000 every year. And the charitable deduction would be $11,261 because they're assuming that they'll live for about 10 more years, so they don't get a charitable deduction for the total 25 grand that year. They get like usually half or a portion because they keep getting about, for this gift, a tax-free portion every year of $1,100. So that's what the annuity part is. They would get that money every year in a check from Wayne State, and once they died, whatever remained out of that 25 grand would go towards Wayne State. So trust and a will, very common, and there was a trust and estates lawyer that I worked with who gave $1 million gift law, and he was so sophisticated, he didn't want us to get his trust documents. So how we did it is we just documented that he made the gift and allowed him to keep all his documents pretty much anonymous. So there's some people who don't want to, go into the nitty-gritty. And as everyone might know, trusts are, a lot of them are revocable. They can change them. So we might as well just book them and move on with our life, right? Okay, so the next portion is real estate devised in a will or trust. I like this example. A man gave the real estate investor James Goldstein promised his home to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. It was actually in the Big Lebowski, and the actual building is just so interesting and fascinating. And what happens is he just gives his house when he passes to this organization. They can sell it, they can use it. In this case, he wanted them to use it as like an art piece. So I just thought it was a really, really nice gift.
It's like the Henry Ford Mansion.
Yeah, the Henry Ford Mansion.
Like the Henry Ford Mansion is given to a foundation, and then we can all tour it.
So I put this up here just to keep it in the top of your mind that it's always beneficial to suggest a planned gift, or ask people, what about giving a gift after you pass? And if people need the cash now or are worried about how much they'll have later, it's a great way to give to their most beloved organizations. All right, so we always have this issue where people don't want to admit they have a planned gift. They think, why do you need to know about that, right? So these are the 5 top reasons to document that they have a planned gift. First one is so we know your wishes. We want to know where you want the money to go. We want to know if you want a scholarship. We could set that up for you. The second is you could inspire others. You could help others make a big, impactful gift. And then the third, appreciation and recognition. That's self-explanatory. We want to make sure we keep you close with our organization, celebrating your gift. Also, fourth, no obligation. They can change it if they decide against it later, or if they want to change things. It's not written in stone. And the fifth reason for us, which is the most important, unfortunately, we need to count the gifts, because we have gift requirements for our positions. Goals. There we go. Goals. Okay, stewarding of a planned gift. Carol explained how to steward. It's just in the same thought process as just call a donor. Stewardship is important. Keep them close in your mind and in your heart, I guess. just make sure you keep up on what they're doing and care about what they're going through. I mean, some people go through losses, people pass away. You just want to hear about how their life's going. They may give a cash gift later, so you never know. So just keep up with what they're doing. And so stay in touch with their life events and meet them face to face. I would say twice a year, just to make sure they know you care about them and you're not just gonna ditch them right after you get a planned gift. You gotta keep up with what they're doing. And
I've had a couple of donors who were like, "You're still going to visit me, right? After I give this gift, right?"
Yeah,
so that's
sure.
when you know you've built a good relationship.
All right, so here are some references you can go to see where we got some of the information we talked about, but that's all for planned giving, and we would love to take any questions if you have any right now.
Yes.
Wait.
Two hopefully quick ones. I'm coming out of the sales world, so what's the sales cycle for these gifts or for the process in general? I mean, average, and also I've heard about donor advised funds, and I'm not sure what that is.
So the industry average from the time you first visit a person till the time you close out a major gift is 18 months. Then the donor advised funds are a way for, it's kind of like a mini foundation. So you can give all your charitable giving to a Fidelity donor advised fund. In fact, one of my donors just said they just set up a donor advised fund because of the new tax laws and how they can group all their giving together so that they can itemize. And so it's a fund that you get the tax benefit from giving to the donor advised fund. It's like a nonprofit fund. And then you tell Fidelity who you want the charities to go to. So it's,
You can set up a donor advised fund through a foundation as well.
Yeah.
I work
Through a
for a
community
community
foundation.
foundation. Yeah, please do that. No, just through a
You have to say that.
Through a community foundation, you can also set up a donor advised fund. I suggest you actually learn a lot about them.
all right, any other?
In your experience, what have you observed in terms of how much money do people that are doing plan giving have as an asset or cash or all these financial vehicles?
The average is
The average,
figure?
is it $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $10 million?
So, that's what's so interesting about this work. There's no average. People don't always disclose everything they own. So we're kind of guessing, or they reveal to us what they have. For instance, that gentleman who was an estate lawyer, he said he put in his will $1 million gift, but he also told me I would like to increase it to $5 million, depending on how business goes. So I don't know how much he has in assets, but I'm assuming it's a good chunk of change there. And you don't need to know, to be honest with you. That's not our job. Our job is to make the relationship work.
We do have a prospect research team that rates people from public information on how much,
Yeah.
if they chose to, could give 50 to 100,000 or 100,000 and 200,000. And we don't get anyone in our portfolio who can't give at least 50,000.
Yeah, they look at their property, how much it's worth, how much you would need to make to, pay for that, and the taxes, and then they just kind of average what they think they probably have in assets. So we don't really think about that too much. We wouldn't go after someone. We wouldn't call on someone. Yeah. But we wouldn't pursue someone who, didn't have the capacity. So I got what you're saying now, yeah. We do have a research team, yeah. So we don't really think about that aspect as much. There are some people who we can tell who are really engaged with our law school, who may not have the capacity in the research department, but I still bring them in because you never know. They might decide to give 50 grand of their hard-earned money because they really care about our law school. And that's happened before.
Last question. Okay, this is the last question?
Yeah, this is about the wealth assessment. So, we're in the process of looking at there's different consultants that you can hire, local people that will do that for you, which I'm meeting with somebody tomorrow, but I want to know about the free wealth assessment tool that you mentioned and where we find those. And also look at other organizations that are Lakers to see who the top donors are, and then you know.
So Wealth Engine at the library. You ready? It's free at the library.
Thank you very much, Carol and Carolyn. I'm sure they'll be glad to stay a few minutes to answer questions. I didn't ask them before, but I'm offering that. Thank you also to Tanner Freeman for sponsoring today. We have some candy for the speakers, but not for Matt, sorry. Unless you want a Snickers bar. Remember to fill out your evaluations. We're on a little break now. The next sessions will start at 10:30, and it shows you on there. Thank you.